So what are we going to do once we started to eat the thing that we planned, that thing that we've been telling ourselves we shouldn't have for so long? Now we've planned it. Biscuits or dessert or bread and butter. Once we start to eat it, how is that not going to completely open the floodgates? How are we going to stop? And this is important that we figure this out before we start eating it, because we have held this belief for so long that these foods don't deserve a place in our lives because we can't trust ourselves around them, because once I start I won't be able to stop. That's what we're believing about them. And let me tell you, you're not going to want to stop, right? I don't want to stop. I eat a couple of biscuits. I don't feel satisfied. I'm not going like, that was so good. Totally hit the spot. Great, moving on. I'm not doing that. I'm like, my brain's going, maybe I could have 3. I mean, the second one didn't really count because it was a digestive, so it's quite salty, so it's semi-savoury really. It's going, oh, well, nobody will know. It's going, oh, well, I'll make better choices tomorrow. It's not much. It's only a little thing. It won't hurt. My brain's doing all of the justifications and excuses for continuing to eat. I want you to know that this happens to me, to all humans, right? And there's nothing wrong with you for having this huge desire for food, especially food which is designed, engineered to be moreish. I mean, that's what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with food which is designed to make you not want to stop eating it. You're supposed to want to keep going. You know, some of those products are even marketed like, you know, Pringles. Once you pop, you can't stop. It's like a selling point, right? And so what's going to happen when we want to stop? How are we going to stop? Well, the fact is, when you know that point is coming, when you know that eating some of that food is going to awaken an even bigger desire for that food, almost than you had before you ate it in the first place, then when that desire wells up in you, and like me with the biscuits 10 minutes ago, right? My mind started to do the stuff, and I almost gave into it, and then I thought, you know what? I don't have to. And you know what? It's not that hard to not eat it, because my mind is also telling me it's gonna be, once I've thought of it, I've got to have it. Like, that's not true. I can stop at any time. And what it requires is an ability to sit with some level of slight restlessness, slight agitation, to allow that desire to continue eating, to just be there until it subsides, and it will subside in just a couple of minutes. And that's why it's such a big lie we're telling ourselves that I can't stop. The fact is, we don't give ourselves a couple of minutes to see if we can. And if we are constantly believing that I can't stop around this food, then we never ever try, and we never give ourselves the chance. Now, I'm not saying that, when we're into the parts of the Sensational Eater program where we talk about opening to urges and emotions, we'll go into urges in really some depth and look at the mechanisms and the kind of break down the stages and how to intervene, the different methodologies, and give you lots and lots of tools to work with urges, right? And lots of practice to work with urges too. But right now, wherever you're at in your experiment, I just want you to consider that when the urge comes, just knowing like, oh, this is the urge to keep eating, even that gives you that little bit of distance from it, that you're not in it. You're just like, I know what's happening here. That's what that is. And knowing that it doesn't last, that at some point it dies down, and that's usually after a couple of minutes, unless you reawaken all of the thoughts again of like, oh yeah, that thing, I still want to eat that, by the way. Oh, that would still be nice. Yeah, and then the thoughts come, then another urge comes, basically, and it feels like it's a continuing of the urge, but it's not really. It's just another one based on another, that you're thinking about the food again. Also what happened at that point when I was having that urge was that I had the thought that I should I had the thought that I should I've forgotten. Sorry, it will come back to me in a second. Oh yeah, that's what I was going to say. And when at that moment when I had that urge, I had the thought that this is really annoying, and I had a little like, oh really, do I not get to eat anymore? Like a little tantrum in my head about me saying a really loving no to myself. And I had to bring myself back to a kind of loving vibe about it and remind myself that I wasn't saying no to myself in a mean way, in a denial way, that there would be more tomorrow. And I think it's really natural, just like when you say no to a toddler, that there's this moment when it's like, oh, but I was expecting it, right? There might be a moment of dismay, and you don't have to sort of argue and get involved with the drama of that. You can just be quite you can just notice like, oh, and there's my mind having a little fit about it, and that's what my mind is bound to do. It's not getting its dopamine hit that it thinks it's going to get. Like, it's not getting the reward, and even if it did, I mean, this is worth thinking about, right? Even if I did give it another biscuit, it's like I'm feeding my brain, it's like I'm feeding some sort of marauding pet, right? But even if I did give it another biscuit, you think the urge wouldn't be there to have another one afterwards? Yeah, sure it would. It's just that at a certain point I get so sick of myself, or so disgusted, that I would call it a day, right? And these days I would call it a day much, much quicker than I would years and years ago when I was binging. And, so that's a huge difference. But the fact is, eating doesn't make the urge go away. It doesn't. It doesn't quench. It's an unquenchable urge. The urge exists because the food is yummy. And as long as the food exists in the world and is yummy, there will be urges. Yeah, it's not possible to be completely immune to urges. In fact, we don't want to be humans without urgent desire. We want to have desire in us. It's part of our passionate nature. It's just misdirected towards freaking biscuits. I want to have urgent desire to live my life emotionally, to connect with my loved ones, to God, be in this life. That's what I want, to be fully alive. But I'm shaking myself sometimes because what I want in the moment is to check out. So, how are you getting on? Are you experimenting with planning some of these previously off-limits foods, these pulps? Are you experimenting with planning them? It's a brave choice. It's not necessarily the most straightforward, because it requires work to normalise them. They're not going to normalise overnight. But I absolutely recommend that you give it a try and see if you can make them, give yourself permission to eat them in small, very mindful amounts. See if you can take away their mystique, their drama, their story, and just make them part of food that does or doesn't get planned. You know, I feel very neutral about whether or not I plan some sultanas on my menu or not. I'd like to feel that way about whether or not I plan a jammy dodger. Loads of love to you. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you tomorrow. We're going to talk more about this ongoing work and how to continue, how to level it up bit by bit by bit. Take care.